Rise of the Bondless Queen Part 3. Chapter 18, The Moon Demands a Duel. The moon was nearly full again. But it didn't shine. It stared. And what it demanded, was blood. At dawn, a wolf howled at the gates of the Moon Palace. Not just any wolf. She arrived cloaked in silver armor, moonrunes etched into her skin, the ashes of old queens painted across her mouth. She called herself Selene of the Bound Flame, High Luna of the Eastern Clans. She had been bonded 3 times. Crowned twice. Never defeated. And now she carried a blade forged from the shard of her last mate's bond mark. You claim to lead without a bond, Selene called through the gates. Then prove it. Let the court see you fight with nothing but your will. I challenge you to a Luna duel. The moon demands it. The elders were giddy. They called an emergency summit. This is precedent, Ralvaran rasped. No Luna has ruled without accepting the duel. If she refuses, we revoke the crown. Tezsan snarled. Then we'll duel every damn elder in this hall. But Elira raised a hand. Calm. Composed. No, she said. They want tradition. I'll give them a spectacle. It was held in the Moonfire Arena, a long-forbidden place where ancient blood still stained the stone. No spells. No allies. No armor. Just 2 women. 1 crown. And the watching moon. Selene removed her cloak. Her body shimmered with bondrunes, tattoos that burned with power. You will not survive this, she warned. You don't have the tether. You don't have the instinct. Elira smiled faintly. I don't need instinct. I have choice. Selene struck first. A blur of blade and moonfire. Elira dodged, not with grace, but with raw survival. Her spiral mark lit up, but it didn't cast magic. It cast memory. With every strike, Elira saw echoes. Lyanna bleeding at the same altar. Ceres drowning in silence. Valesai whispering across lifetimes. But she did not falter. She remembered the bondless power wasn't about spells. It was about endurance. About burning without being consumed. Selene knocked her to the ground, blade at her throat. Yield, she whispered. The court doesn't need a question. It needs a queen. Elira looked up, blood in her teeth. Then let them see why I ask none of them for permission. She reached out. Grabbed Selene's blade. And broke it in half. Not with magic. With will. Her spiral mark ignited. A blast of force sent Selene flying backward. Elira stood, burned and bloodied. I am not your Luna. I am your lesson. Selene lay stunned, breathless. Elira did not strike the final blow. She turned her back. Walked away. And said only. If you wish to follow, stand. If you wish to rule, fight me again. If you wish to die, raise another blade. Selene rose to one knee. And whispered. Long live the Bondless Queen. One by one, the gathered wolves in the arena, nobles, warriors, even elders, dropped to one knee. Not because she was crowned. Not because she was chosen. But because she had stood when even the moon tried to break her. From the shadows, Kael stood beside Nyra. She could have killed her, Nyra said. She did something worse, Kael replied. She made her question everything. That night, deep in the ruins of the Moonstone Chamber, the stone pulsed once. Cracked again. And from inside it, a single glowing rune bled out. It spelled her true name. Ilaris. And beneath it, the queen who bled and chose. Chapter 19, The Bondless Transformation. It began with fire. Not the kind that burned. The kind that remembered. The moon didn't rise that night. It flickered once on the horizon. Then disappeared behind a wall of black clouds that no wind could move. The tide froze. The wolves grew restless. And Elira couldn't breathe. Not out of fear. But because something inside her had begun changing. The spiral mark on her palm split again, this time without warning. Lines of light etched across her arms, up her spine, down her legs. Silver fire without heat. Her body arched. Her skin glowed. Kale found her first, collapsed on the floor of the old moonfire chamber. "Don't touch her," Naira warned, rushing behind him. "This isn't pain. It's awakening." Elira's body lifted off the ground, suspended in a cocoon of moonlight and spiral-born flame. Her limbs stretched, her skin flickered like shattered glass, revealing flashes of different forms. A she-wolf with burning wings. A woman crowned in roots and ash. A creature made of starlight and bone. And then silence. Stillness. And something new. When she opened her eyes, the chamber had changed. So had she. Her hair now shimmered silver-black, threaded with glowing veins of spiral light. Her eyes no longer held color, just a mirrored surface, reflecting everyone who dared look at her. Her claws had returned, longer than before, each tipped in stardust. But the most unsettling shift. Her presence. It didn't feel like a wolf. Didn't feel like a witch. Didn't even feel human. It felt like possibility unchained. Like prophecy unwritten. Tez-san dropped her goblet when she saw her. "Is that Elira?" "No," Naira whispered. "That's something else." Kale stepped forward. Her scent was still hers. Her energy still hers. But her soul pulsed with a rhythm he'd never heard before. "Elira?" She turned to him. And smiled. "I remember all of them. Saris. Liana. Valesai. I carry them now. But I am not them." Her voice echoed, not with magic, but with memory that didn't belong to one life. "I am the first of something new." She lifted her palm. The spiral on her skin finished blooming. And this time, it didn't spiral inward. It unfurled outward into a circular crown made of 9 petals. Each one pulsed with a different essence. Wolf. Witch. Fire. Salt. Bone. Sky. Memory. Storm. Choice. A crown of everything she was never meant to hold. And yet, she wore it like it had waited for her all along. Elira stepped onto the palace balcony. Thousands of wolves waited below. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "You followed me when I was fractured. You crowned me when I was hunted. Now see me as I am. Not chosen. Not cursed. Complete. I am not the Luna you expected. I am the one you made real. And I will burn down the sky before I let them take that from us again." The wolves howled. Even those who had once cursed her. Even those who had once left. Far beyond the palace, in the weeping skies where stars were said to be born, a constellation shifted. The spiral moved. And beneath it, 3 stars flickered red. The 9th moon was close. And the world had chosen its storm. Her name would no longer be whispered. It would be feared. Ilaris. The Bondless Flame. Chapter 20, Kale's Final Vision. Kale had always known 2 things. That the bond chose you. And that once broken, it never came back. He was wrong on both counts. It began not in sleep, but in silence. Kale stood in the garden beneath the moonless sky, staring at the throne tower as Elira's new form glowed faintly above it. She wasn't a queen now. She was something else. And every moment, she drifted further from the world they once shared. That night, as Kale closed his eyes, he wasn't pulled into dreams. He was dragged. He opened his eyes in a place that did not exist. A void without sky. A sea without water. A throne of bone, rooted in a spiral carved from his own spine. Atop it sat a version of himself, older, colder, crowned in shadow. You let her break the bond, the reflection said. You let her walk too far ahead. Now choose. Chase her. Or destroy what she's becoming. A second figure appeared beside the false Kale. Valesai, veiled in moonlight, robes stitched with dying stars. She held out a blade made from the original moonstone, its core still pulsing with bonded magic. You may reclaim the tether, she said. One cut to your palm, one word spoken aloud, and the bond will restore. But not as it was. Kale narrowed his eyes. Then what would it be? A chain, she whispered. A crown. And the end of her rise. She will belong to the bond once more. And in doing so, she will cease to be Alaris. He looked down at the blade. And if I refuse? Valesai stepped back. Then you will be what no alpha has ever dared become. Unbonded. Alone. And forgotten. The void flickered. And Kale saw Elira, standing crowned in flame, ruling a court that remembered no names, no lines, no laws. A world untethered, beautiful and terrifying. Wolves without allegiance. Magic that bent not to fate, but to desire. And Kale? Standing at the edge of it all. Not broken. Not cursed. Just, no longer needed. He took the blade. Raised it. Pressed it to his palm. And then stopped. His voice broke. She chose to walk alone. And I chose to follow. He dropped the blade. The false Kale vanished in a howl of fury. Valesai faded into ash. And the spiral beneath his feet began to crack. You were not meant to survive without her, a voice hissed from the dark. Kale smiled. Then I guess we both became something we weren't meant to be. Kale snapped awake, gasping, drenched in sweat, his mark burning. But something had changed. The bond was gone. Not broken. Erased. Nothing remained. No memory. No echo. No call. For the first time in his life, Kale was truly free. He stood on the balcony as Elira raised her hand to the stars, the spiral crown of light unfurling behind her. Kale did not feel sadness. Only clarity. I was never her tether, he whispered. I was her witness. And he would follow her into the storm. Not to save her. But to see what she would become when no one held her back. Chapter 21, The Mark returns in a new form. She didn't wake screaming. She woke singing. And that was far more terrifying. At dawn, Elira rose from her bed surrounded by whispers, silent ones. Not from people. Not from wolves. But from the walls. The spiral on her palm, once the seat of her bondless power, had vanished in the night. Faded. Erased like chalk in stormlight. In its place, a new mark. Etched across her ribs like wildfire. Not curved. Not delicate. Not sacred. A broken crown, pierced by 3 thorns. Each thorn bled slightly, seeping silver, like the skin couldn't hold the truth beneath it. She touched it. And the room shifted. She stood before her mirror. Her reflection didn't match. Her mouth didn't move when she did. Her eyes weren't the same color anymore, one silver, one black. Naira rushed in, summoned by the servants. Elira, the court's asking. She stopped cold. Elira, what's on your side? Elira turned. And Naira staggered back. The mark was pulsing. Alive. Ancient. Not fey. Not wolf. Not witch. Something that remembered before names were written. Tez-san, Merrick, and Corian joined her in the hidden library that night, each dragging ancient volumes, scrolls, memory spells, and Munrun charts. None matched. Not a single record held the mark. Even the sea wolves flinched when it was described. It's not a crest, Corian muttered. It's a seal. A seal of what? Merrick asked. Corian's voice dropped. Of what the First Throne swore never to speak. The mark of a queen, with no bloodline. No prophecy. Only creation. That night, Elira dreamed again. But it wasn't of the spiral. It was of roots. Roots coiling through bone. Through stone. Through time. She stood before a throne she'd never seen. It pulsed not with moonlight, but with pulse. Alive. Breathing. Upon it sat a crown she instinctively feared, not because it threatened her. But because it recognized her. And when she reached for it, 1,000 voices cried out. Do not take what was buried. She didn't flinch. She placed it on her head. And woke with blood in her mouth. At high moon, the mark burned. Every candle in the palace snuffed out. The stars dimmed. And across the kingdom, wolves felt cold inside their bones. Kale, training alone in the southern tower, dropped to his knees. Corian sea wolves howled as if drowning. And in the Crescent Rebellion camp, the red-blooded wolves clutched their chests, some crying out, some collapsing in pain. Only one being stood unaffected. Elira. Because the mark wasn't hurting her. It was calling her. Naira brought the final piece hours later. Not a scroll. Not a spell. A song, carved into an obsidian pendant buried in a sealed tomb beneath the first palace's foundations. Its chorus. 3 thorns crown the queen of none. She who broke the wheel of fate. Not chosen, not born, not made. She who becomes what even gods forgot. Tez-san whispered. It's not a bloodline. Naira added. It's a beginning. Elira stood before her new forged crown, the crescent crown of will. And for the first time since she created it. It cracked. Only once. Only slightly. But it responded to the new mark, as if jealous. As if aware. That something stronger now defined her. Not Luna. Not Wolf. Not even Bondless Queen. But the first flame. Chapter 22, The Queen and the Blade. You can burn a name. You can bury a crown. But some blades remember. For 3 nights, Elira's sleep was haunted by the same dream. A sword, buried in a field of ash. A flame that would not die. And a voice, hers, yet not hers, whispering. You will need it to end what they began. On the 3rd night, the ash curled into symbols. The symbols shaped a map. And when she awoke, the spiral on her ribs had inked the location into her skin. Tez-san stared at it. Do you know where that is? Elira nodded. The hollow spire. Where the first thrones were broken. She left before sunrise with Merrick, Naira, and 2 red-blooded scouts. The hollow spire had long been forbidden, a place cursed not by magic, but memory. No birds flew over it. No beasts hunted near it. Even the wind refused to sing. The ground crackled with scorched glass. The air whispered in reversed language. And at the center, a black monolith twisted like a spiral struck by lightning. It wasn't built, Merrick said. It was left behind. They found the entrance in silence, a carved archway framed by statues of wolves without eyes. As they crossed the threshold, something moved. Not a creature. A presence. A man emerged from the dark. White-robed. Sword on his back. Face tattooed in spirals. His voice echoed like thunder through stone. You are not the first to come for it. Elira stepped forward. But I am the last. He studied her. His gaze stopped at the mark on her ribs. Then he bowed. Only she who carries the thorned flame may take the blade of unmaking. But know this. It does not serve a queen. It serves truth. And truth kills both liar and believer. He led her down into a vault with no ceiling, just open sky that was black even in daylight. At its center, embedded in obsidian and bone. A sword. Not silver. Not steel. A weapon made of spiral bone, moonglass, and fire that refused to extinguish. Elira approached. The air trembled. Her mark burned. The blade whispered in a voice older than any language. I am the thing they feared you would find. I am the story that ends their version of history. She gripped it. And the hollow spire shook. When her hand closed on the hilt, visions struck her like lightning. The first queen sacrificed to bind fate into shape. The thrones built from their bones. The bond forged not as a gift, but as a leash. Valesai choosing silence. Ceres choosing death. Lyanna choosing memory. And Elira choosing to undo them all. When she emerged from the hollow spire, she did not speak. The sword rode her back, sheathed in ruined leather that pulsed with hidden flame. Kael was waiting at the palace gates. He saw her. Saw the blade. Saw the burn in her eyes. You found it, he said. She nodded. Not to rule. Not to kill. To reveal. And if the throne won't survive it, then let it fall. That night, the sword lay across the crescent-crowned stand. As Elira slept, it pulsed once. Then whispered a name not spoken since the stars were first carved. Velker. And the altar beneath the palace cracked. Chapter 23, The Siege of the Moon Palace. The day began in silence. Not peace. Not calm. The kind of silence that wolves feel in their bones, before a storm that forgets mercy. It started with the wind. Not the normal breeze from the Sea of Howl, but a wind from the south, hot, dry, and thick with the scent of smoke and iron. Tezsan burst into the war hall. They're here. Elira didn't need to ask who. Because outside, the sky had darkened not with clouds, but with banners. Red ones. Marked with spiral thorns and 3 silver stars. The Crescent Purists. The Eastern bonded clans. And the traitors within her own court. United under one name. Velker has returned. Chaos unfurled inside the Moon Palace like blood in water. Guards scrambled. Mages prepared rune wards. The sea wolves circled the towers. Kael stood atop the main gate, eyes locked on the horizon. They have siege beasts. Spell runners. And wolves that no longer howl, because they've had their voices burned out. Corian joined him. They've waited too long. This was never about rebellion. This is a cleansing. Kael nodded once. Then let's make sure they choke on our ash. As Elira rallied her forces, the palace trembled. A scream cut through the west wing. Not from an outsider. From inside. 3 red-blooded wolves were found slaughtered in the moon garden. Carved not with blades, but with bondrons burned into their skin. Naira staggered into the chamber, blood on her hands. It's the bonded priests. They've infiltrated the inner halls. Elira's spiral flared. Then we start cleansing of our own. She raised the blade of Unmaking, and for the first time, the sword reacted. Not with violence, but with command. The moment her hand closed around the hilt, a wave of silver flame erupted from the palace gates, creating a dome of fire that burned bond marks on contact. The army outside paused. Not in fear. In recognition. She has the blade, one of the commanders said. She's not playing queen. She's playing end. Outside the second wall, Kale met the first wave with Merrick and a pack of oathless wolves. Spellrunners clashed against spear walls. Skyborn arrows lit the night. And Kale, wrapped in firelight, fought like the ghost of the first Alpha reborn. But this time, without a bond. And it made him faster. Fiercer. Free. He howled once. And half the battlefield scattered in instinctive fear. Back inside, Elira entered the east tower to discover the worst betrayal yet. Drenna. The elder who had once stood silent. Now stood holding the crescent crown, offered to a figure cloaked in silver shadow. You forfeited this the moment you broke tradition, Drenna hissed. Elira stepped forward, eyes glowing. I didn't break tradition. I proved it was a lie. She lifted the blade of Unmaking. The figure reached for the crown. And the crown burned to ash in their hands. The real crown now sat nowhere. Because Elira wore her mark instead. By nightfall, the palace trembled under constant assault. Explosions rocked the southern tower. Sea wolves bled into the marble halls. Even the boneforge cracked. And through the ash, a single horn sounded. Deep. Resonant. Old. Velker's army had arrived. But not in flesh. In spirit. Wolves that did not bleed. Clad in bone. Eyes of void. Voices like thunder carved in stone. They chanted one name. Ilaris. But not in reverence. In judgment. Elira stood atop the shattered moon balcony as the spectral army surged toward the inner gate. She gripped the blade. It whispered. You are no longer a queen. You are the final page. And the sky answered. By raining fire. Chapter 24, The Crownless War. The thrones were empty. The crowns were ash. But the war still came. Because what they wanted wasn't to reclaim the old order. They wanted to erase her from memory. The Moon Palace had fallen silent. Not in defeat. In focus. Every breath inside its walls was held between fire and steel. The spectral army of Velker had breached the second gate. The air reeked of scorched runestone and blackened fur. And above it all, the moon, eclipsed in full shadow, wept silver rain. Corian stood on the upper battlements. We won't hold another hour. Tezsan gritted her teeth. Then we die loud. Kale turned to Elira, who stood at the center of the throne hall, the blade of Unmaking glowing against her spine. There's one way to end this, he said. She didn't ask what. She already knew. The thrones. Naira gathered what remained of the sea wolves, the red-blooded, and the crescent defectors. They formed a last circle around Elira, an army made of outcasts, oathbreakers, bondless kin, and cursed daughters. They had no sigil. No name. Only her. And when she raised the blade to the sky, it lit with the mark burned into her ribs. The broken crown pierced by 3 thorns. They marched behind her like the old world had already ended. And in their eyes. It had Beneath the palace lay the first thrones, ancient, forgotten, buried to hide what came before the bond. Elira and Kale descended together. He carried no weapon. She carried the last one that mattered. Before them stood 9 thrones carved from obsidian, bone, salt, flame, silver, and silence. Each one still pulsed with memory. Valesai's. Lioness. Ceres's. The unnamed. The unremembered. Elira raised the blade. Kale touched her wrist. You do this, there's no turning back. She looked up, eyes blazing silver. There never was. She swung once. And the throne of silence cracked. The room howled. She swung again. And the throne of fire shattered. The earth trembled. The blade pulsed in her hand, humming a song of finality. One by one, she cut through them. And the magic that bound the realm to the bonded cycle began to tear. As the thrones fell below, the war above paused. Velker's army froze mid-charge. The spectral wolves dropped their weapons. Their eyes glowed. Their mouths opened. And they began to howl. Not in rage. In release. The bond that anchored their undeath cracked. And in its place, a whisper of their names returned. But one throne remained. Velker's. The throne of the first Alpha. And when Elira raised the blade, Kale stepped forward. This one's mine. She froze. Kale. If I don't end it, the bond remembers him. And so do I. He placed his palm on the throne. It burned. But he didn't scream. He smiled. I was never meant to rule. I was meant to end the rule. He pushed. The throne shattered. And so did the last thread tying them to Velker. When the dust settled, Elira stood in the ruins of 9 thrones. No bond. No prophecy. No curse. Only will. She turned. Above her, the palace had stopped burning. The moon had begun to rise. Whole. Bright. And silent. For the first time in centuries, there was no crown waiting to claim her. Only a world she could now build. Elira stepped out onto the shattered balcony of the Moon Palace. She raised no banner. She wore no crown. But every wolf below bowed. Not in submission. In awe. And far beyond the realm, in temples long abandoned, scrolls rewrote themselves. The title returned. Ilaris. The one who ended the crowned age. Chapter 25, The Dawn Without a Name. The thrones were gone. The bond was dust. And for the first time in the realm's long memory, the world woke up without a queen. Elira stood alone on the upper terrace of the Moon Palace ruins, looking down at a kingdom that no longer bowed. Not because they had forgotten, but because she had taught them how to stand. Where once statues of past Lunas stood, Liana, Ceres, Valesai, they were now replaced by empty pedestals. Not erased. Not shamed. Left open. Waiting. So that no one would ever be chained to a crown they didn't choose. That morning, Elira woke to find the mark across her ribs had changed again. The 3-thorn crown had unraveled, its thorns blooming into flowers. Each petal bore a name, no longer hers. Liana. Ceres. Valesai. Velker. The nameless. The forgotten. Her spiral had become a memorial. She ran her fingers across the fading lines. You can rest now, she whispered. Kale met her at the last pillar before the edge of the cliff. His mark was gone. His voice was quieter now, gentler. I'm leaving, he said. She nodded. You were always meant to walk beyond me, he added. But I wanted to see where you'd go. She stepped closer. You were never my anchor, she whispered. You were my mirror. Kale kissed her forehead. Then break me if you must. Because what I see now is a story no throne could ever deserve. And he walked into the woods, not as a king, but as a man finally free of being anything but himself. In the cities, wolves began gathering not in courtrooms but in circles. Some became storytellers. Others, counselors. Some began carving their own symbols, spirals, thorns, flames. No one asked for a new crown. Because no one needed to ask who had ended the age. On the final day of her reign, if it could even be called that, Elira returned to the chamber beneath the palace, where the blade of Unmaking had been sheathed. She placed it in the center of the ruins. Wrapped it in her crownless cloak. Then whispered. I do not need to be remembered. I need you to remember what came after. They asked her once, what title she wanted etched on the memorial stone outside the palace gates. She told them none. No title. No name. Only a phrase. And so it was written. She walked without leash, without crown, without fear. And in doing so, she taught the world how to begin. Elira left the palace that night with no guards, no pack, no banners. Only the wind. And when the spiral moon rose once more, the stars bent slightly, silently, beautifully. As if to make room for something new. Not a queen. Not a god. A flame that would not burn to rule, but to light the way.
Every tale you hear here leaves a mark on the world beyond. If this story stirred something in you, leave a like to weave your magic into ours. Share your thoughts in the comments. Every voice spins a new thread in the arcane tapestry. And subscribe to our YouTube channel Arcane Stories, where myths breathe, shadows speak, and destinies awaken. The next legend is already waiting for you.